So this all was not really modular stuff, and I also had some interesting modular stuff that I want to talk about right now. The first thing is, sampler, kind of. It's more like, it's a one-shot sampler and sample player and a loop player that's in development right now. It's the ALM Busy Circuits Sampler, and it has 8 channels of samples or sample loops. It's not really clear if the loops will be running to a clock. They can be changed in speed, so the possibility should be there, and I don't really know why it shouldn't work like that. But yeah, this would be the bomb. You could have 8 sample sequences running in a loop, matching the speed. They are sampled to a SD card, so that's nice. You have a backup of your sampled stuff. You can load samples that you created in your iOS device or on your PC. You can load it into it and run it on your modular. Really cool thing. And as I said, it's right now in development, and yeah, there's a really cool video by DivKid which goes into it and some other stuff they showed off, but I really dig the sampler. It's on my must-watch list to see how that works out. As I said, if you can put an aim and break or something like that on one of the loops, I'm sold. I would buy a module that only plays the aim and break or some breaks in a loop synced to a clock. If you have 8 of them, hey, the more the merrier. But yeah, besides that, this was a sampler, but what I was really interested in is sequencing stuff. So I'm not really a fan of, working with my PC and a modular. There are some options to have your PC work with your modular from Bitwig with expert sleepers. There was something else, but that's not the way I want to work. If I work with the classic pattern-based or piano roll-based style, I just use my iPad. So my Eurorack is something that will be more into, more experimental sequencers or self-generating. But speaking of sequencers, I found 2 interesting things. The first is the 512 numerology, and numerology is a software for macOS that's a really, it's a sequencer that's working in a little bit other way than the traditional piano roll pattern-based style. And basically this Eurorack module, which is really big, and I don't know if it has to be that big, but probably it has. But it's basically that in hardware form, which is really interesting and something I will look into later on. As I said, I will look into sequencers after I have a setup that can do some self-generating stuff. But that's something I'm really interested in. And if you know numerology, you know that it's very capable of doing some very big stuff. And it looks really, really promising. Nick Bett from Sonicstate has a really cool video online that I link in the description down below. Let me put this away. And the other thing that I was really interested in before Superbooth is the nerd sequencer, and I brought the guy that builds it up front to Superbooth with some questions, and understandably he said, I will answer your questions, but I'm right now building and packing stuff for Superbooth, so I will contact him later again, because right now he has a lot of things to do, I guess. But yeah, the nerd sequencer is really interesting. I started my music making on PC with a software called Circles, which was just samples that you can put into. Not really good, but the next step was a tracker, and it was called Buzz. And besides being a tracker, it also had a very modular setup, and that's something I want to maybe recreate in hardware. So you had these generators that you could sequence from your tracker, you had effects that you could sequence, stuff like that. And the Nerd Sequencer basically does exactly that. It has 8 channels right now. I don't know if there will be more when you extend it or how you will use the extended stuff, but it has 8 channels with CV and gate that you can send nodes to your modules. There are expanders with CV outs and gate outs, maybe for drums, something like that. There was even stuff like a 16 knob keyboard to program the tracker in another way, in hardware form. It has a display, and what was really cool and what I will hope that it will become part of this as an expander or something like that, they had an HDMI and composite out to show the small tracker window on a monitor, which could be really interesting if you have your setup, your big monitor in front of you that you work on, and you just get rid of the HDMI cable. You can use the stuff you did on the internal small monitor when you're on the go, like with my Eurorack system. It's portable, and that's the idea of it. But I would really like to have a sequencer that I can program with a little bit more viewing space, and having the sequences big on your monitor, maybe behind your Eurorack on the wall, could be really cool. The video I linked is by Cuckoo, who, as I, has a background in trackers and seemed to be really interested in the idea of it, because when you work with trackers, you know that there's some stuff you can do that's not that easy in a piano roll style setup. Basically what you can do is have subsequences that you start inside a pattern for, maybe have something like arpeggios, stuff like that. Or have a kind of programmed curve of effects, cut off sweeps, something like that. It's a really other way to work, and I probably put music in the back that I did with bass. There's only one song, so it will be running in the back really low. Maybe I put it up a little bit more in this part, but that's basically done with a tracker. I'm really keen to go back to that just for this Eurorack stuff, because as I said, bass really worked that way. You had modules that generate sound, modules that do effects, and from the sequencer you could change stuff, which is basically what you do with a modular. And the last thing I want to talk about is Mutable Instruments Marbles. That's not something I really saw in the Superbooth coverage, probably because it was featured big beforehand. But Marbles is a gate and CV generator that is built around the idea of producing rhythmic and melodic stuff. And there's a really cool over an hour video by DivKid about it that I link in the description below. And that's something I was really interested before Superbooth, and I didn't really see anything that would change my idea about it. So it's something I want to get. It will be really cool to play with plates for some of these sounds, like the string modulator sounds, tracking it from the CV that's built in that you can put on scales. Really cool stuff. Check out the video, link in the description down below.